Hello. Welcome back to another theory of the Masters of the Air Season 1 finale. The true story of the Masters of the Air ending explained, and what is going to happen next is revealed on this content. How close to life was the eventual fate of the cherished soldiers of the 100th Bomb Group revealed in the final episode of Masters of the Air? Warning, there are spoilers ahead, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Pilot to crew, what's our damage? Report!
Overview of the contents. 1. Important characters prepare for escape, deal with the reality of war, and keep Thorpe Abbott's operational in the last episode of Masters of the Air. 2. The 9th episode of the show goes deeply into the characters' final months of conflict, producing powerful and poignant scenes that highlight the central themes of the series. 3. The post-WW2 lives of the characters are disclosed. However, not all the details are covered. The series mostly stays true, or at least close to the real history of the U.S. Army Air Forces, as seen in the final episode of Masters of the Air, which explores the fates of important figures of the 100th Bomb Group, including Gail, Buck Cleven, John, Bucky Egan, Harry Crosby, and Robert, Rosie Rosenthal. As they march across Germany at the conclusion of Masters of the Air, Buck and Bucky devise an escape plan, and Crosby keeps Thorpe Abbott's operating while Rosenthal gets a closer look at the reality of the war. The 9th episode of Masters of the Air was noticeably longer than the previous ones, so there was ample opportunity for the show to explore the last few months of the conflict from the perspective of its protagonists. The episode had numerous pivotal moments that were not only significant for the characters they portrayed, but also deeply moving for viewers. The 100th's food drop over Europe, Rosenthal's discovery of the concentration camp, and the POW's victory over the Germans at Stalag Luft Roman 6, for instance, were all crucial components of what ultimately proved to be a very moving and fulfilling conclusion. What follows Masters of the Air, but isn't included. Even though Masters of the Air did a good job of concluding the lives of its protagonists, certain elements were unavoidably left out. These are, for the most part, little details about the characters in Masters of the Air, but they are crucial to comprehending both their pre-World War II identities and their post-war identities. Harry Crosby, Major. A few aspects of Harry Crosby's life are left out of Masters of the Air, despite the fact that the show covers his education and career after World War II. For instance, it is disclosed that Crosby and his spouse Jean served as co-presidents of the TAS for their kids. However, it is also accurate to state that the couple was involved in their neighborhood and led multiple initiatives opposing the Vietnam War. Moreover, in the 1960s, Crosby's military background proved useful when he was appointed Director of Studies at the Pakistan Air Force Academy. Alexander Jefferson, Lieutenant Colonel. While Alexander Jefferson's employment as a Detroit public school teacher is mentioned at the end of Masters of the Air, this aspect of his life was actually very important. Jefferson taught science in primary schools before rising to the position of assistant principal in 1969. Jefferson taught for 30 years in all. Moreover, Jefferson's Purple Heart Award in 2004 and his honorary Key to the City in Detroit in 2021 are not mentioned in the series. Richard Macon, Captain. Richard Macon received an Air Medal and a Purple Heart for his service in World War II. However, neither of these awards are mentioned in the conclusion of Masters of the Air, unlike his colleague Tuskegee Airman Alexander Jefferson. In addition, the Congressional Medal of Honor was given in 2007 to Macon, Jefferson, and the other living Tuskegee Airmen, along with their spouses, in recognition of their World War II service. In conclusion, Macon deserves acknowledgement as a founding member of Tuskegee Airmen Inc., and as the head of the Detroit branch. Robert, Rosie, Lieutenant Colonel Rosenthal. While the last few minutes of Masters of the Air effectively encapsulate Robert Rosenthal's post-war accomplishments, the program fell short in addressing one facet of the 100th Airman's life. Although Rosenthal was shot down and rescued by the Soviet Army in February 1945, this was not his first encounter with German land. Rosenthal had been shot down in September 1944 while in German-occupied France, but he managed to get asylum with the Free French despite injuring his nose and arm. After that, he was given a desk job, but he was able to return to flying swiftly. Bucky the Colonel Cleven. There are actually even more amazing things that Buck Cleven accomplished in his post-war life, in addition to the numerous amazing information masters of the air presence. To start with, Cleven earned a doctorate in interplanetary physics from Georgetown University. Later in life, he took over as president of the struggling Florida College, Weber College, and radically transformed it. Cleven was notable for a brief stint at the Pentagon prior to that. Last but not least, it's critical to remember that Cleven remarried to Esther Lee Athey, with whom he lived until his passing in 26. Bucky Egan, the Colonel John. Ultimately, Bucky Egan's remarkable post-World War II career was well documented in Masters of the Air, including his participation in the Korean War and his passionate marriage to Josephine. There are a few more specifics, though, like the fact that Egan received the Legion of Merit posthumously in addition to his other decorations from the Korean War and World Wars II and III. Egan also left behind 2 daughters that he had with Josephine. Austin Butler as Gail Cleven. Did Gail Buck Cleven actually escape from being a prisoner? And was Bucky left behind? While it is true that Buck Cleven managed to escape from a POW camp during World War II, the actual events and timeframe differ significantly. First and foremost, Buck's escape is depicted as having taken place in April 1945 from the Nuremberg POW camp, while in reality it took place during the first evacuation and march of Stalag Luft Roman III in January 1945. In the middle of the commotion, Buck Cleven was able to escape as the men moved from Stalag Luft Roman III to Moosburg. Records from the American Air Museum seem to indicate that he managed to get away on his own. One noteworthy detail of Buck's escape in Masters of the Air is that, in order to save Buck and make his escape possible, Bucky Egan steps in front of a German soldier's gun. There are no records indicating that this occurred in real life, despite the fact that it was an intense and emotional event. The only facts that are known for sure are that Buck Cleven managed to get away, but Bucky Egan and the other members of the 100th were held prisoner until the spring of 1945, when the Americans eventually took control of the German POW camps. Buck and Bucky were eventually reunited. Thank you for watching, and don't hesitate to leave a comment below.